Welcome to Talk Sporty To Me, a Sports with Aliyah talk show. Today's guest, everyone knows him and loves him. It is Kellen Marshall. Kellen, how are you today?
I'm great. Thanks for having me on the show.
Yeah.
How are you?
Thanks for coming. I'm just doing great. I'm so excited to have you on the show because I have been covering you now for 3 years, going on 4 years. So I think it'll be cool to show everyone the kind of evolution that you've had and the positions you've had on the team and everything like that. So we'll get started basically with just how you started. I know that you want to be a coach. So when did you realize that you wanted to follow in your dad's footsteps?
I would say probably pretty early on, like my freshman year of high school.
Wow.
I was thinking about, now this is kind of a rudimentary way to think about things, but I was thinking, well, I want to do a job where I'm active, I don't want to be at a desk. And at that time, all I wore was like, just like this, like t-shirt and shorts. Like, my dad gets to wear sweatsuits every day. That's awesome. Like, I could just wear sweatsuits.
Yeah.
And be in a basketball gym. Like, that's not really work, right? That's great. So then I kind of got in my head that I wanted to do it. And then the more I was around the team throughout high school, it just kind of solidified the idea that I wanted to be a part of the team and pursue that path.
Mm-hmm. And your dad, everyone loves him, everyone admires him. So how is it learning from someone that's not only your dad, but a very highly respected basketball coach?
I was actually just talking to my friend just yesterday. We were out playing golf and late after practice in the evening, and I was sitting there talking to him. I was like, dude, it's kind of weird. I sit here sometimes at practice and I just watch my dad coach, and I see how he just can see everything on the floor all at once. He knows exactly what he wants from his practices, from each drill, even from every possession. And I'm like, wow, this is my dad. He's a top 15 coach in the country.
Yeah.
Maybe top 10. I mean, to me, he's even higher than that. But,
yeah.
Everyone will agree with that he's one of the top coaches in all of basketball. And so to see that is, one, really cool. And two, it makes me proud that, I see he's so good at his job, so well respected at his job, and that so many others come from their programs, their teams, whether it be high school, JUCO, whatever,
Mm-hmm.
to watch him. Even other D1 coaches who have come and watched our practices from different leagues and then gone on to win their leagues and go to the tournament. And you see that, and you see little things they picked up from watching my dad, watching our practices. So all of that is kind of surreal in a way. Mm-hmm. It's a little tough to, step back out of, my position as just a manager / GA now, and just see the big picture of how cool that is. So
Mm-hmm.
it's very rewarding and cool for me to see.
And what's something in particular that you really picked up on that you want to be like as a coach?
Well, as far as just the way he coaches the game of basketball, I pick up everything. There's
Mm-hmm.
nothing that I don't like about what he does. Offensively, I think the way he coaches is really, really hard to guard, how hard to scout for other teams, the way we run our sets, the way he calls out sets, just all the action we run, how it's all starts out the exact same way.
Yeah.
It's really tough for other teams to scout. And even coaches that have been in our league now, like Coach Luke Dino, he was at Indiana State, and now he's here with us on our staff. And he always says, like, Wichita State was the hardest scout that we had all year long, every year. I had it, I hated it.
Mm-hmm.
And then even more than that, I think defensively, the way he coaches defense and the way he takes pride in defense, rebounding, and toughness.
Definitely.
That's the kind of thing that I want to make sure I bring with me no matter where I go, what position I am. I want to bring the mindset that he has of, we're going to be tougher, we're going to outwork you, we're going to be nastier, and we're going to win because we want it more than you. And that's how he's always been for his whole life, in everything that he's done, coaching or not. And that's the main thing. If you could pick just one thing, it's just his mindset and his toughness that he has about him.
I love that. So you mentioned that there's not really anything that you dislike, but is there something that you see that he does and you're like, I want to do that a little bit differently, kind of have your own style when it comes to coaching?
Well, as he has coached for now, I don't know, he says 35 years, I guess. The generations of kids that he coaches has changed.
That's true.
It's different for me because he's my dad, so I may take things a little better than some other kids would who didn't have, an upbringing that was, work through it, don't be a baby, whatever.
Yeah.
Just to paraphrase. But I think there's certain ways nowadays that you have to talk to your players.
Yeah.
And you have to find different ways to motivate different guys. Not everyone responds the same. And I've seen him have to adapt.
Yeah.
Especially last year when success wasn't coming as easy because we were so young. He had to really change the way he coached, change the way he handled losses, because you couldn't beat that team into the ground or they wouldn't have been able to keep going. They probably would have folded. They would have broken because times got tough. Really, really tough. And so something I've learned from him, just seeing how he is and how he is a no-nonsense guy, I've learned there's a lot of different ways to get the best out of different players.
Yeah.
So that's something that is an ongoing process, and it will continue to be changing for me, in however many years when I become a head coach. I'm sure it'll already change. It'll be even worse. You won't be able to even tell a kid you did something wrong because, a lot of times nowadays, unfortunately, people can't take criticism. So you have to find other ways to motivate, teach, and change how they go about things on the court.
I like that you bring that up because I've covered your dad now this is going to be the 4th year, like I said, and I've seen that transition because they won every single game and they weren't used to losing. And then with this young team, I really saw even the way he spoke in press conferences. He was very optimistic the entire time, and it wasn't that he wasn't before, but this past season you can tell that he did shift the way he coached because these guys were so young and they were losing a lot of games. So I think that's really cool that you pointed that out because he's one of the greatest basketball coaches and he's still evolving, and I think everyone just needs to adapt and evolve. So I like that.
I think you see that in not just him, but in all of the great coaches. You just go look back. I watched a series. It was on ESPN Plus. It was about Coach K and Duke, and just the way he's had to adapt, not only with the way the basketball, the game has changed, but with recruiting and dealing with one and dones, and that's something we deal with. But he's had to really adapt how he coaches, the way he lets his teams play, year to year. Defensively, he has to adapt because sometimes he doesn't have teams suited to play man-to-man, which is what he would prefer. So a lot of, all the great coaches are constantly learning. And anyone who's great in any profession, not just coaches, they're always learning, and they're always growing their mind, growing who they are. We actually got to go spend time with Charles Koch and his family at his house a couple weeks ago. And Mr. Koch talked about how, because it was this cool dinner our friend had, and we were all there, and we got to actually ask him questions and that were tailored for what we wanted to know. And some things I asked were, what's your daily routine like? What do you do? What do you do in the morning, especially? And he just talked about how he always is learning. He never wastes a second. When he goes from his drive from his house to his office, he's playing an audiobook. He's learning. He reads a ton of philosophy, and he reads about psychologists. He kept talking about Maslow, And to hear him, a guy who has anything he could ever want, talking about, yeah, I made something good today. How am I going to make an impact tomorrow? He's fueled by how he's going to be able to make an impact, big or small, tomorrow. And that's by learning and growing who he is every day.
I love that. That's something that anyone can learn, even if you're not a coach or anything. So now moving on to you and what you do for the team, what has your role been in years past, and then what are you working for this year?
So when I came as a freshman, I was just a manager. So I was learning how to, help on the court. You have a ball and a towel. You're ready to wipe up a sweat. You're ready to help in drills, passing, rebounding. What you would think a manager does. And then as I've gotten older and moved up the ladder a little bit, I've gotten to do more. 1 year I ran the clock, so that, may seem like a very basic job, but it's really important because you have to know all of the drills, how they're scored. Sometimes you have to read coach's mind because he'll want a sprint for whether it's a 4 or a 6 or an 8, which is how many lengths of the court you have to run. The time, you have to be really, really, really ready to go. You got to tell how mad he is at the certain time. It's like, okay, we're just gonna run a 4, or no, that really made him mad. We're running an 8. He has to be ready to go that. So I did that for a year. And then last year I moved into doing some scouting work, which was really, I think, a big growth platform for me, just getting to do the very basics of watching film on other teams, writing down what I see. I wasn't doing full scouting reports, but we were doing a little bit of additional stuff with the 2 other GAs, JR and Tanner, and then Nick Jones, our video coordinator. We kind of compiled our own sheet, what they do on offense, on defense, what we can do on offense to score, and then other random things we saw. Sometimes I would catch play calls, which is great because the last 3 years I've done play calls during games.
Yeah.
So we get play calls from their teams. They'll send them in to us. They'll say they run this is the call at this time in this game, and then they'll either have an action, they call it, but sometimes we don't know what it is. So we have to go back and watch. Okay, this call means this in our language, because everyone has their own language. There's some universal stuff, but everyone has their own. So that's something I do during games, is play calls. And then now as a GA, I'm just kind of figuring out what I'm doing. But I know one thing is, as a GA, you are counted on by everyone, especially the players, for so many little things, which is great, because we got a lot of young guys still. We got, I think, five new guys, and they're my little guys, my little buddies. Like, hey Kellen, I need to get in my locker. I can't get into my locker. Okay, what's your code? Oh, it's 5439. Okay, let me just try it. Boom. Oh, it worked. Oh, man, I've been doing it all day. I don't know why it didn't work. I don't know, man. Just keep trying. Or, I had Tyson Etienne text me this morning, 7:45 in the morning. Hey, Kel, how do you get the lights on in the gym? So I love that because it tells me he's in the gym working. Yeah. So I called him and said, hey, Tyson, where you at? He said, I'm in the gym. I said, okay, walk down the hallway, turn to your left, hit the practice button. And so, all that stuff, they turn to you. So either I can help them or I know someone who can. So as a GA, you really, I think, you wear so many different hats.
For sure.
Take care of a lot of different stuff. So that's kind of what my role is going to be next year. So it's a little overwhelming, but I think I'll be able to do it once I get into it.
Yeah, and speaking of, you've been through it all. You've grown up with your dad's players, and you were, very young, looked up to them, but now you're in the position where you have the leadership role, and you've grown up with these guys, and now you're leading them and the younger guys. It's just crazy. So how's that transition been?
It's been really, really weird.
I bet.
Just as far as the transition from my junior to my senior year, I've told you this before, but we had a lot of guys who were older than me when I was a junior. We had 6 seniors, we had 3 juniors. So I was just, part of the crew. I wasn't someone they really looked to as much.
Yeah.
Although I felt like I had some ways, where I could help every once in a while. I wasn't really comfortable enough to just voice that out. But then last year, all of a sudden, we lose 2 coaches, we lose 10 players. I'm one of the most experienced guys. A neighbor of my parents tells a story. He worked at Western Sizzler growing up. This is kind of how I equate myself. He was like, well, I hate this job, I hate this job, I hate this job. Hey, you're assistant manager. So all of a sudden, he had moved his way up, and he had some power and, relatively speaking. So that's kind of how I felt. All of a sudden, I have a little bit of a voice. And so that's been different. I still feel like, these are my buddies, these are my friends.
Yeah.
And I'm definitely young enough to still be friends with a lot of the guys. But seeing, even this summer, being like someone they really count on, like when we had camp, Asbjorn and Jamie, who are older, they're junior and senior, they're texting me, hey, I have this, I want you to know I'm gonna be gone for an hour, I'll be back. I said, hey man, thanks for telling me. Like they just, they're very respectful to me, which is something I really appreciate, especially being the older guys, because that sets the tone for a lot of the younger guys of how they look at me and other, GAs and even our managers, as a manager myself, I definitely want to always protect those guys, don't want them to be put through anything that I wouldn't myself get put through. So it's cool to see the way the respect has come from both sides.
Yeah.
For me.
I love that.
I just slam on my brakes, and I get out of my car. Probably ran 50 yards, just like full sprint with cars. And this is a message just for you. If you're offended by it, you're the problem. I was in a hotel room by myself, just sobbing. I was so happy. I like dogs, and I like playing with dogs.